Our theme for Lent is in the garden. Each week, we explore a different aspect of our relationship with God through the metaphor, the setting of a garden. And in each of the stories, we'll begin with this, just the day of Jesus' arrest and betrayal. And then in 6 weeks, we will gather, actually 7 weeks, we'll gather on Easter Sunday. And again, we'll be in a garden setting where Mary Magdalene goes to find the Christ whom she thinks is dead, and she finds the stone rolled away, and she is encountered by the risen Christ, again in a garden. The garden is a metaphor, a setting for a meeting place between ourselves and the divine, the sacred, the spirit, the holy. In Celtic theology, there is a concept of the thin place. And a thin place is the sense of a permeable membrane that separates our conscious world, our world of thoughts and calendars and responsibilities and to-do lists, from the world of the supernatural. You ever get goosebumps? You ever get a sense of tingling? You look out and you see a whale breaching off Gloucester. Or you see a rainbow after a very gray and dreary New England day. Or you hear or you hold a child for the first time. Remember when you held your child or your grandchild or your niece or your nephew for the first time? That sense of awe, that sense of wonder. That's the thin place that the Celts speak of. That sense that there's more going on than meets the eye, and that God, the creator of all that is good, lasting, and true at times, chooses to enter into our ordinary lives and remind us that there's more going on than our list of to-dos and schedules, more than our worries, our dreams, and our schemes. Do we believe this to be true? Because if we're even open to the possibility that this mystery we call God desires to be part of your life and my life, then Lent becomes a season of meeting, a season of encounter. We begin this first Sunday of Lent with Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane. Our passage takes place in the last week of Jesus' life. Just before he is betrayed by Judas, his trusted disciple of 3 years, Jesus knows that the walls are closing in. He knows that Caiaphas, the temple priest, has it out for him. He knows that Caiaphas is in collusion with Pilate, the governor of the Roman Empire, which is occupying Israel. They know that his name is literally on a list. And he knows that the form of oppression by the Roman Empire is the most brutal of deaths, crucifixion. He knows that his time is running out, that he has few options, and so he goes to the Garden of Gethsemane overlooking the city of Jerusalem. And here there's a deep sense of not only the divinity of Christ, but the absolute humanity of Jesus. This nature of Jesus, both human and both divine, as it says in the book of Philippians. Jesus says to his disciples, "Sit here while I pray." He took Peter and James and John with him and began to be in great distress and trouble of mind. Jesus said to them, "My soul is deeply grieved, even to death. Stay here and keep awake." You remember the last time you felt like you were cornered? You remember the last time you felt like you didn't have options? To live for any length of time is to have those kind of moments when we really feel frightened. Perhaps we get a difficult diagnosis. Perhaps there's someone that you have placed trust in and they have broken your trust. Everything that your sense of order has collapsed. And you feel alone, you feel isolated, you feel scared. That's what Jesus is going through this night. He knows that one of his most trusted companions, Judas, has betrayed him. and he's about to be arrested and thrown into the hands of a ruthless empire. Going a little further, Jesus throws himself on the ground, and he prayed that if it were possible, the hour might pass from him. And Jesus said, Abba, Father, for you all things are possible. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I want, but what you want. Do you remember the last time your heart was breaking? Do you remember the last time you were afraid? If we live for any length of time, we're fortunate to have some great friendships in our life. And when I was attending Andover Newton Theological School in Newton, Mass, I met a friend, and we became almost instant best friends. His name was Jamie. We were playing volleyball in the courtyard of the seminary. I was a brand new student. Jamie was a second-year student. And there's just something about this gregarious guy that just drew me to him. Never met him before, and we became friends on the volleyball court, and then our friendship continued to grow. And for the next several years, he moved to Seattle, Washington. I was doing an internship at a church in Montana. We did a backpacking trip from Seattle all the way down to a road trip, really, down to San Diego. Just a great friendship in life. And then when Jamie was 33, he was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer. I remember going to visit him, and I knew that his time was running out. And I knew that I was about to lose my great friend. And this guy who was a young pastor in Seattle with so much to give, that his life was coming to a close. You remember what it's like to grieve? I know you do. Do you know what it's like to have your heart broken? I know you do. It's what it means to be human. And on that visit to Seattle, I knew I was seeing Jamie for the last time. Jesus was struggling. Jesus felt alone. He was grieving for what was, for the one who had betrayed him, and he was grieving for what he knew was to come. Jesus says, Abba, Father, for you things are possible. Remove this cup from me, yet not what I want, but what you want. Not my will, but your will be done. This phrase, Abba. Abba means, essentially it means, in Hebrew, it means Papa. It means Daddy. It's a form of intimate expression of one's parent. And I think it's very beautiful, this sense of connection that Jesus has in this passage. As frightened as he is, as overwhelmed as he is, as grief-stricken as he is. For Jesus, God, the creator of all that is good, lasting, and true, the source from which Jesus comes, there's a sense of intimacy. Papa, Daddy. A deep-seated awareness that as dark as this moment is, and it is for Jesus in the garden, that he's not alone, that God is with him. His disciples, however, could not stay awake. Their sleepiness is a metaphor for disciples then and now who are not able to grasp what it is to be fully connected, intimate with our God as Jesus was. They lacked an awareness that soon, very soon, everything would change. Judas, one of their own, would betray their Lord and them, and that the Romans and the temple guard would come and arrest Jesus and take him in time to the cross. They could not stay awake to what was about to happen. But for Jesus in the garden, as scary as the moment was, God, the Creator, was very close. 3 months after visiting Jamie for the last time, he died. at age 33. And his body was flown back to Detroit, where he grew up. And a group of us, as classmates and friends, went to say goodbye to Jamie. And my deep concern was that when I would be at that graveside, that what I would feel would be only a sense of despair, of isolation, a sense that I and we who had loved Jamie so much had been abandoned. But what happened on a February afternoon with snow on the ground, with sleet coming down, at that graveside was a deep sense that I and we were not alone. A sense that the inexplicable in an inexplicable way that God was with Jamie. I just felt that. I can't prove it, I can't quantify it, I can't measure it, but a sense that I and we together, his family and friends, his wife, Kathy, that all of us would be okay. That's the thin place that the Celts speak of. That awareness, that sense that Jesus had in the garden when he said, Abba, Papa. That sense at that gravesite in Detroit, that I and we were not alone. That I and we and Jamie, who we were laying to rest, were not forgotten. Lent is a season in the rhythm of the Christian journey which reminds us to be open, expectant, and awake to the infinite ways in which God is speaking into your life and mine. To follow the garden metaphor during these waning days of winter, we are invited to believe in what we can't see, to have faith that under the snow the work of spring is already underway. Bulbs and roots have been storing nutrients and energies since autumn, and over the winter and soon, very soon, will begin to push their noses up through the ice and snow and mud, and soon we will see a beautiful gift. I love crocuses. It's a fun word to say, isn't it? Crocus. But you look outside, the snow is coming down again, right? It's almost spring, but the snow is coming. And sometimes we New Englanders may feel that spring will never come. But under that snow, right now, all the work of spring is busy. Those bulbs are about to burst up. And in the warm days that are supposed to come next week, look around, you will see that first crocus coming up. It's a metaphor, it's a symbol of hope and renewal. Throughout Lent, as you enter the sanctuary, there is a table in the back with flower pots. You're invited to write your name upon one, and as you feel led, to place a colored bead, which is representative of a seed in your pot, as a personal intention of where you hope to see growth in your life. And it's only going to be between you and God what you decide to put in that pot, perhaps each week. Perhaps there will be multiple colored beads. You'll find in the back white beads, which represent peace. Blue represents hope, green, healing, gold, forgiveness, red, faith, orange, patience. Whatever you're dealing with in your life, whatever struggle or hope or dream or longing that you may have, you're invited to place that bead in your pot each week, and it's going to have your name on it. It's just yours. And ask God to be at work to bring that gift of peace or hope or healing or forgiveness or faith or patience. Because Lent is a season of growth and renewal and restoration. We start today in the garden with Jesus full of distress and pain. Yet Jesus knew even then that he wasn't alone. We are to be open to the ways in which God is speaking to us. In the Garden of Gethsemane, Jesus says to his disciples, "Keep awake and pray that you may not come into the time of trial. The spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. Jesus reminds us of what we already know, that we can lose our way, lose our focus, and lose our faith. It is as if we fall asleep to the ways in which God loves us and desires to breathe new life into us individually and collectively. I don't know about you, but I go on detours all the time. I lose my way all the time. I can fall prey to what a friend of mine calls stinking thinking, running negative tapes through my head. But Jesus calls us to a life of renewal and blessing and hope and joy. The first Sunday in Lent, God is at work just under the surface of your life and my life, stirring new possibilities of growth. Are we ready to receive the gift? Are we awake? Because if our answer is yes, if we even hold just to the possibility this may be true, then God will enter into your life. And over the course of this Lent, we will truly be blessed. This is the good news. Thanks be to God. And may God's people say, amen.